Welcome back, WNST. Charleston, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively in one of the most Baltimore positive places I can think. We are in the epicenter of all delicious seafood here in the old Lexington market since 1782, as the sign says here, the world-famous Lexington market. We're Faidley's. Last chances are coming to be in this space. They're building out the stall about 100 yards to the south of here. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. It is the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I have the Wacky Window Nation hat out. My friends at Jiffy Lube have not gotten me anything wacky to wear yet. They just change oil. They're multi-care. You can get out and see them and visit them. We are appreciative. Our friends at Window Nation, 866-90Nation. You buy 2, you get 2 free. 5 years, 0% financing. This guy's got a lot of windows. It's taking a little while to get him on the show, work into this thing. He sits on panels, hosts things, had a thing last night, is most importantly through all of this. I had Tom Kelso on last week talking Stadium Authority and all this, and I'm like, let's start in the first 5 minutes, and nobody in my audience knows who this guy is. What's the integrity? What have you done? Like all that. This guy's friends with Alan McCallum, so that immediately takes 30 years of relationship and makes you, as Charlie Ekman would say, a right guy. Matt Campbell is here. He is the are you the executive director?
That's right.
Why is it always executive director? Because Of the Baltimore Convention Center, by the way, just so everybody knows where he works. He's made the walk up here in the rain, just a little bit up Lombard, a little right on Paca, and we're here. Executive director, I always love chiefs, like fire chief. Mm-hmm. I always give those people a hard time because I'm like, man, it's hard to be a chief. Anybody can be a mayor. Anybody can be an executive director or CEO. But, there's something about being chief. But you are the chief executive officer of all things, the convention. What does that mean at this point, and how long have you been doing this? Because I feel like I've been going to the convention center since it was the old convention center, and then it got expanded, and I lived downtown for 19 years. So I would look out my window and see cars loading in, see health food loading in, see shows loading in, see vendors loading in on weekends, motorcycles loading in. And I don't know that everybody understands, how functioning it is when 1,200 girls come in and play volleyball for a weekend and take the city over, or when the nerds would come. Nerd Fest, that was our favorite. Not Comic-Con, what do they call it?
BronyCon? Otakon.
Oh, my God, we walked through the harbor. So the convention center, when you live downtown, is like a heartbeat of the city. Mm-hmm. I don't know that everybody in Towson or Owings Mills, unless they're coming down for an event or for something they don't have weddings, the things that would bring people to a convention center, like a car show or whatnot. But, I think the plague changed a lot of things for downtown, and certainly the first industry I thought about was, we can't get together. Oh, that's going to screw San Diego because they're a convention town, right?
We had to pivot a little bit.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, man.
My
you
pleasure.
and I know each other in the real world a little bit. We've done our thing at the Nest, but give me some convention center, because we hear Stadium Authority, we hear Camden Yards, we hear the Inner Harbor, Bramble, everybody's got a plan. Brandon's been doing his thing. The convention center's is sort of the middle of all of it, right? Literally. Anything good that's going to happen in the city is going to happen to the convention center.
One would hope, right? So thank you for having me. So the convention center's been open since 1979, right? Like you said, the original building right there on Pratt Street, right in the middle of the
Where did we have conventions before that?
You had it at the Civic Center when,
Fair enough, in the 70s, okay.
Yeah.
They filmed movies there.
Because they opened in the 60s, right?
Right, 61, right.
So they were there, and then
that's the way cities did it.
Yeah. A
convention in a city was like a political convention. It went to an arena.
Yeah.
Or a civic town hall.
Or like the fairgrounds, things like that, 4-H, halls, things like that. They didn't have, they didn't have Microsoft conventions and large tech conventions and medical conventions.
But I bet they had Xerox. I'm just thinking, if a convention – well, I guess the convention part of Las Vegas was probably, adjacent to that Hilton where Elvis would play, right? I'm thinking that would have been a convention destination in the 70s.
Sure.
Where they put something up to say I'm not looking to insult the convention center, to put a wedding function banquet hall on steroids into a space. Because it's basically Martin's, but just bigger. You know what I mean? Literally, right?
And we're 1.2 million square feet, right? So yeah, we're pretty big. We're about half the size of D.C., to put it in perspective, but we're still significantly larger than a lot of other destinations. We have a great asset in downtown to help bring a ton of people, a ton of economic impact that's left here from out-of-town guests.
I saw it all the time. I mean, those downtown restaurants and whatever David Bramble would put at the harbor, the convention center would be part of feeding those restaurants, feeding the harbor, all the businesses, like the places I love, like Ramen Atsuki, which free plug there for them.
Fantastic.
By the way, free plug for Howard Scher, a Duck Doctor, because I'm drinking my Royal Farms coffee out of his mug today because I lost my real mug at Accelerant last month. Long story, but so I have my Duck. Thank you, Howard. I love you. Let me give his number too: 800-955-1275. Duck. This is my former DJ partner, Howard Scher, Humpin' Howie. Duck Doctor. He's done the show down here, so I'm just happen to have his mug, so if anybody sees it. This is where I am with the convention center because I'm a kid growing up here, right? So I remember the day the Harbor Place opened. Yep. I was there. I fell into the harbor chasing a crab on Rash Field. I told my wife.
That explains so much.
Are you making fun of the river water or the Patapsco River Basin in 1981? I would probably the water is probably really polluted then. Now that I'm thinking about what used to be there. So the harbor opens. Whether it was the Science Center, the Convention Center, going to a Styx concert with my mom at the Civic Center, going up to Chinatown, here to Lexington Market, to Faidley's, literally, to the Palmer House down the street where I park my car around the corner here. I walked these streets in the 70s and 80s. The Convention Center, the dream of the Convention Center, and the vision of all of it. And I don't want to credit Governor Schaefer too much because he's got a statue and he did the show and I loved him and he loved me and it was all good. Because I've heard the detractors too of the politics of where money was coming from and how it all got done and how it was sort of power struck through that not everybody agreed to Harbor Place, right? Like it was a very controversial piece of land and what they were going to do with it. You can go see the videos and follow governors. But there was a vision, and I keep saying, whether it's John Angelo's, I don't think it's Steve Bisciotti because he doesn't want to be, but the stadiums, the money, the harbor, Bramble, what's left of the inner harbor, the political system and all the people that work it, the vested businesses in the city. There was a vision at that time in my life as a kid that I didn't see it as Disney World, but I have a feeling Governor Schaefer went down and saw Disney World and said, this guy built this in the middle of a swamp. We have like this beautiful river basin that they take advantage of in Europe and in other places. And if we can clean it up, we have great business here. We got Bones here. We got highways here. We got Philly there, New York. We got crab cakes. We have this little kitsch. We're provincial. We have history. Let's dress it up. And the convention center in 1985, let's say, after all that went on here, riots, all the bad stuff that we're familiar with in the modern era, trying to clean up a reputation for a city, that in the 80s come to Baltimore for a convention, right, became something that we competed favorably with Las Vegas or with San Diego. Nashville wasn't even on the radar. Orlando was coming on because they're Orlando. That's what you're trying to build, right? And I think about how big the convention center is and how grand it is, and you would always go underneath of it or through it at various points. It took up a big part of downtown. But I have worked or lived downtown every day of my life, and I want to be clear, since 1984. I don't think there's been a day in my life that I've been in the city, 3 days of my life, because I live out in the county now, where I'm not in the city. I was here last night. I was at the American Cancer Society at the Museum of Industry. There's so many assets to the city, and the reputation, when it meets back up with getting it more modernized, and whatever this money is, whether it's John Angelo's, whether it's David there needs to be an idea. And that's what I keep coming back to, that there was an idea here. It was a really grand idea, and we should all stand in awe of how it worked.
Sure.
And that it could work again. There needs to be a belief that it could work again. And I think that that's what I'm trying to seed a little bit by saying it took money, it took vision, but there needs to be a vision of what it's going to be.
Sure.
And it needs to be sellable to everybody. Everybody has to be able to buy into it.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm not going to speak for any of the other developers, for Dave Bramble, for the.
Well, I invite them on, and everybody. Jeff Ratnow is going to be here later talking about downtown and development. So I'm trying to talk to as many people on all sides of the spectrum to say, because there's going to be a lot of ideas, and I'm sure there were in 1975 too.
Here's what I can tell you.
Sure.
And Their Downtown Partnership released a report earlier this year that said there's $6.5 billion with a B, $1 billion being invested in downtown Baltimore, a mile from McKeldin Plaza, between 2018 and 2028. So
that includes CFG Bank Arena, right?
It includes what's
it
right
includes
next
Lights in
door.
the Market.
Yep,
It includes
that's
this
right.
space. Okay,
Yep,
good.
It includes the new exchange that opened up at the Hippodrome. It includes a multitude of things, and not just public venues. It also includes the new center that opened up at the University of Maryland Medical. I mean,
we're not some dead place where there's not being an investment made.
$6.5 billion is in the pipeline, either already online or in process, and that doesn't even include anything that's happening under my roof. And here's the really cool thing, right? You could think that, and you're like, oh, well, that's too big to fail, and just forget about it. The business community that are representative of that list are in a room together on a regular basis, talking about how do we make sure this doesn't look like a patchwork quilt. How do we make sure that we take the best ideas of each other's concepts and make them work together? And I think obviously the work that MCB Real Estate has to do to make sure that Harbor Place functions the way it wants to. You see that
it's just a massive project, man. I mean, it really is. Like in 1980 when I saw 81 comes online, I'm a little boy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I always saw it as grand. I mean, I have such amazing memories of going down there as a kid with my mother and eating. No offense, at Phillips. I learned, it's a little. I've traded. Damie's looking at me because I'm at Faidley's. But I mean, as a Harbor kid, and then I dreamed of living at the Harbor. Right?
Yeah.
I lived.
Well, it was number
for
2
19
in
years on the 23rd floor, where the sun rise and the sun set every day of my life.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a dream of mine. I hope that I live to see the next thing, to go down there, have a coffee, have a beer, walk around, and say, what would Mayor Schaefer think of this? Right? Yeah. And it needs to be grand. It does. Camden Yards was grand. The Harbor. It needs a lot of love, but it has all of the bones. Your building. What's the bones of your building?
So it's 1.2 million square feet, right? It's got 50 meeting rooms. It's got 300,000 square feet of exhibit space, that big concrete slab that can be turned into anything anybody needs. It's got the second biggest ballroom in the state, over 36,000 square feet. It's got lots of public function space, our outdoor terraces and things of that nature. So we are here to help drive economic impact through all of the ancillary expenditures people have when they come to town.
The city owns the building, correct?
Yeah, I'm a city employee, making sure that we have about 150 full-time staff that work for the city.
I think I met most of them when we did the Nest.
Hey, man.
You had your little idea for baseball, and I've lived here my whole life. I live 3 blocks away. I walk past that corner thousands of times.
And we're going bigger
literally,
next year.
And I walked upstairs, and I'm like, this is the most beautiful, like, I would get married here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there's glass, and there's Camden Yards, and there's light, and you can see the football stadium, and cars are passing by. It's a very busy intersection.
So I became executive director in January. And since I've been here, we've had the People's Ball for Westmore's inauguration. We recently just had a big Greater Baltimore Committee Economic Summit. Last night was Downtown Partnership's annual meeting.
I'm going to be asking about that.
So we have a in my opinion, a responsibility to be a backdrop or be a platform for a lot of important Baltimore initiatives, right? When
everybody who makes decisions is in your building a couple times a year.
I'd like to
just
think
in
so.
general, because the flow of government and the flow of leadership runs through your building.
And even in ways you don't think about. Like yesterday, we had a ribbon cutting for the Whitman Coin Show that comes 3 times a year for over 50 years. That's our 51st year in Baltimore. The Coin Show, 3 times a year.
See, this is the stuff that I should be coming down and talking to.
Come on,
people
anytime.
Are interesting. This is interesting.
So at the ribbon cutting, we had Comptroller Henry, we had Senator Antonio Hayes, we had Council President Nick Mosby talking about the importance of all of this stuff, and they get to see. You'd be amazed when an elected official comes and walks the floor and sees something like the Coin Show, where you have vendors from all over the country coming to Baltimore with millions of dollars of inventory. They just had no idea. So it's really my passion to put the Baltimore Convention Center front and center to Baltimoreans and to the region, right? Because we aren't.
It's not just for volleyball kids from New Jersey playing ball, right?
we talk about people coming off a plane, they go to the Hilton, they walk across our sky bridge, they go to
come
their
to Faidley's, get a crab cake,
or maybe not. The perception is they eat at the hotel, they eat at the center, they walk back and they leave.
No, they come here.
Well, that's the thing. And it's that residual impact, right? We're more than just this contained ecosystem. People go to Lexington Market. People go to CFG or go down to Harbor Place or go into Harbor East
or
go into
Fells
the
Point.
county.
Sure.
Go to Fells Point.
Sure.
So the there's a lot of stats that I could spit off, but the thing that's really important is we see over 500,000 attendees a year, and they all mostly are out of town. Not all, but a lot. They are leaving all of their hotel tax revenue here. They're going to restaurants because they're in Baltimore, right? They've got to spend that money. Our return on investment for the state is 4-to-1 because the state subsidizes our deficit because the sales tax that we generate in Baltimore City is seen at the state level. So the state is invested. So
if they're not coming for the convention center specifically, they're not coming. And then all of it's gone.
Right. So the way I look at it,
because they're going to Detroit or they're placing an event. Right.
Right. So
and more coming online. Ocean City. I mean, everybody's sort of competing, and the way we're seeing Maryland and Virginia yell at each other over this FBI thing right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are 18 convention centers that I could list right now that are either being built or being renovated. Because obviously I have a vested interest in being
who's
in
the
that
competition,
list.
Right?
Oh, right. And right now, cities that have far less attractive bones than Baltimore, we have the bones of our city are second to none, but we have older assets, right? So we make up for it with our excellent customer service, our fabulous people. That charm is what we rely on when our building is starting to get older. But
bringing 5,000 people to my city, we're going to make sure. Not just rub your shoulders, but make sure we all look good. We want everyone to look good when they come to Baltimore.
So
right?
we're Baltimore City's convention center, but as I was referring to before, so much of the economic impact is felt in the county and even in Garrett County, because if the sales tax is seen at the state level, it gets doled out all over the state. So we're really the state's convention center just as much as we are the city's. And that's when we're talking about getting a new convention center. We got to make sure that everybody understands that a win for Baltimore City and its convention center is a win for the entire state. This past session, Governor Moore gave us $25.7 million to stabilize a lot of our older systems and to help enhance some of the stuff that really needs a new.
We're not getting a new building, right?
Not yet.
Right.
Not yet. But we're making sure that there is clear signs that we're not resting on our laurels. We're not because you're right. People can go elsewhere. They can take their convention business elsewhere outside of the state, and we lose. Right? We have to be a venue of record, right? So it's making sure that we bolster our city. I work very closely with Al Hutchinson and his team at Visit Baltimore to make sure that we're telling the story to folks of why they should pick Baltimore. We travel to those destinations.
Let me ask you. By the way, Matt Campbell's here. We're at Faidley's. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. No one here yet's quiet, but I'm going to be giving these away. I hope that there's shrimp salad here at some point coming.
I think you know somebody.
Bill Cole's coming. I promised him deviled eggs. I'm looking around. Do we have deviled eggs? Gosh, thank God for that, because he wasn't coming if there's no deviled eggs on a rainy day. Our friends at Window Nation are also here, 866-90Nation. I will wear the wacky hat when Cole gets here next segment. Damie Hahn's here as well. We're going to talk about holiday shipping. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving. I'm going to talk about having sauerkraut and kielbasa for Christmas. I love the holidays, man. I mean, I'm going to have They have peppermint and gingerbread scented. I called them sniffers on the air, and John Martin he's the executive director of the Maryland Lottery. He was a little offended. I called them sniffers. They're scented tickets.
Yeah, why do you make them smell then?
I had John Waters on the show this week, right? So not to put you in that kind of company, but I did.
Hey.
You and the Pope of Trash all on the same airwaves the same week. And he's doing his Christmas show over at Soundstage next month and doing a Valentine's Day show as well. And he was top of my bucket list, to do that. And I was just wondering, what I can get away with to be wacky to have John Waters on this week. And I asked him what he loves about Baltimore, what makes Baltimore unique. Yeah. And I guess that's something that you're selling every day of your life. I am Baltimore. People know, my deal with whatever. They come up to me, but everybody you talk to, somebody on the outside that's heard crime this, Freddie Gray that, blah, blah, blah. But how about this? Got a good baseball team if you're pitching next summer that you want to come down and be a part of that. There is certainly the bones of the city. That never changes. Crab cakes never change. The water, pricing, location, all of those things. But when the options are us and name 3 of our competitors. Like, what are the cities we have a convention where they're like, I'm thinking, because they're probably not thinking Baltimore, Orlando, or Vegas. They probably have big city, big 30,000 people type of things. But if they're what kind of place are we?
Typically, what a convention is going to do is look at, we want a West Coast, we want a somewhere in the middle of the country,
Caribbean,
and that'd be nice.
Yeah,
and then we cycle, right? And so we'll get a show, on a route. So they're looking for their East Coast destination for this particular year.
So you're really not competing with the Midwest; you're competing with the Seaboard.
Sometimes, but most of the time, it's mostly we're looking at a regional thing, right, up and down the East Coast.
Boston, Philadelphia, New York. All off
Columbus, Nashville, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
And so I was really graciously invited to ride on the bus with the governor's cabinet and the lieutenant governor and the mayor.
Damn sandwich with potatoes on it. What's wrong with those people?
Let me get to that.
Okay.
So about 2 weeks ago, I was able to go on a bus tour led by the mayor with the governor's cabinet, lieutenant governor. And we went around and we started talking, and I got to be one of the stops where I got to talk about, why the convention center is worth investing in, and to my earlier point, why it's the region's convention center and drives economic impact for all.
Lobbying our audience. Tell us. Come on, you got it.
Well, you just said no one knows about the convention center, so you got to start somewhere,
right?
I'm starting with you, Nestor.
I'm embarrassed that I've been doing this 5-6 years and I haven't talked more about it because it impacted my life every day. Because I could look out the window and see whether I'm having Comic-Con or whether I'm going to have motorcycles or whether it's going to be something we could sneak into, like some health conference. We get some cool samples.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So we always knew what was going on there because it was a block from my house for 19 years.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who ran it for 19 years.
Yeah,
That's why I'm happy to have you here.
So the mayor and the governor are both, and myself too, are incredibly competitive people, right? And when we see that we're putting out responses to RFPs to places like Columbus or Pittsburgh or Cleveland or Savannah, we're like, wait, and we didn't win that? Oh, heck no.
They do have the bananas down there. They got a thing. Talk about a vision. I mean, who would have thought that was the vision? I didn't think the squirt zone at the Orioles thing was going to catch on, but what the hell do I know?
Oh, yeah.
So
it's our job to bundle all of these good stories that we know and take for granted in a lot of cases.
They don't know about crab cakes in the harbor. They don't know about things that are going on museum trails, war trail, Fort McHenry.
So I was talking to a brand new owner of the coin show yesterday. They just recently got acquired, and he's from Virginia Beach, and he has been coming as an exhibitor for years. But as an exhibitor, you're just here. You're here to do your commerce and leave and go to the next show. And when I started talking about everything that's happening with Harbor Place, with the arena, with Lexington Market, he was like, wait, what? So it's our job to do a robust sell job of all of the stuff that's so easy to talk about that we're so excited about. So that's why I get so excited to come to work every day, because I get to support my team by telling these narratives, right? And it's amazing. I was at Mako. I know you were there too, talking to folks from the Eastern Shore. They don't understand why the convention center is important. To them. And so then we get to talk about that regional story, about why that's important, because all of the economic impact materializes at the state level. They feel that in Wacomico. But they don't know it.
But it's different than, if the baseball team's good, I'll come to the city to see a baseball game. The convention center doesn't necessarily look to do events that gets everybody all the time, because they're, like I said, sometimes I can't get in.
Right.
But sometimes it's a motorcycle show or a car show that you would say, we have Sammy Hagar's Ferrari here. If you want to come see it and you live in Stevensville, come across the bridge, and it's safe to do so, and tie it in with a ball game on a Sunday, or tie it in with a crab cake, or some other reason to come to Baltimore. But that's reason enough. I mean, my wife loves cars and all of that kind of stuff. And you see it whenever you have a show like that there that's more open to the public.
That
right?
regional drive-in business absolutely wants to bundle stuff, right? So a trip to Fort McHenry, a trip to the aquarium, check out another thing that they're spinning up, a brand new floating marshland that's going to be millions of dollars.
Or eat that crab cake I saw on the Food Network.
That's right.
Right,
well, yeah,
literally,
absolutely.
right? Yeah.
So no, there's
So what do you pitch? So you get in front of people.
Yeah,
Give me your elevator. Give me you get 5 minutes to say, why am I coming? I mean, it's almost embarrassing that I'm having Mac do this. Why come to Baltimore instead of Columbus or Pittsburgh? Or like, to me, it's a no-brainer. I've been to these places.
That's right.
Pittsburgh's okay. I mean, Columbus.
Yeah, I know. And that
go to Cleveland. I'll and it's Browns weekend. I'll even say that.
And that was exactly the response of our elected officials. Is, oh heck no, we are not losing to anyone, but definitely not. No offense, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Columbus.
Anybody we've ever lost to in baseball or football.
There you go. So I mean, it really depends on who we're talking to, right, Nestor? But bottom line is we've got a large building that is ready and primed to address anyone's needs, whether it's a local Comic-Con show, whether it's a national show for plastic surgeons. Whoever we're talking to, we're making sure that we understand that customer and their patrons to make sure that we're pitching very specifically.
Well, the bigger businesses already have they know what they have a system, right? Very few people are saying, I'm doing my first convention ever, and I'm going to call Mac, and we're going to figure it out in Baltimore.
Right, correct.
But they've all done these they know a good one from a bad one. They know good service from bad service, and they get the feedback of their constituency as well. And that the most important thing that happens after 4,200 people come to your building on a Saturday for a coin show is that they go home and say, I'd do it again. Right?
So like last night, everybody at the downtown partnership meeting was talking about how great our food was, right? And that spreads out. If a convention comes and they are like, oh my God, that food in Baltimore is fantastic, or the adverse, if we missed it.
Oh, we've all been to a party with bad food.
When we think about, and
he remembers the food half the time.
And how clean the bathrooms are, right? That's like it's the joke, but it's mostly true, right? It's how clean are the bathrooms, how good are the food, how welcoming are the people, and we hit all those marks. But like you said, people do this for a living. You're right. They put out an RFP to all the cities in the country, and we respond. And we, like, for instance, I flew out to Chicago since I've been back to pitch the plastic surgeons for 2027. We have things on the books through 2030, right? 2032.
Wow.
So we're looking real long lead to try to land these pieces of business. And so we went in there. We did a game show with their team to try to separate ourselves from just somebody who comes up and talks with a PowerPoint behind them, give them prizes, talk about Baltimore. It's like a Baltimore trivia kind of thing.
That's so kitschy that I'd love to be involved in it. That sounds like fun.
But then you figure out, the plastic surgeons. The guy who wrote the original textbook on plastic surgery, Hopkins.
Wow.
So, the birth of plastic surgery, Baltimore.
I didn't know that. I'll remember that if I ever get it, because my friends are taking odds. I'm like, I don't like any surgery. I'll have jowls. It'll be okay.
You don't look.
I stayed young and sexy long enough. At some point, I'm going to go over the hill.
But and you've got Maryland Medical Center, who just has had just between shock trauma and all of their national, worldwide firsts in surgeries. I mean, we've got these fantastic assets.
Any doctor convention should be here.
Well,
right?
And a lot are.
I would say that because I did the American Cancer Society. I was their esteemed MC on. I did a really good job until my notes got screwed up and I started crying because I brought Michelle Modell up and she did this thing to honor David, and I'll start crying about it if I talk about it right now. But so I did this thing, but the doc came up, Dr. Regine from Proton Leader, and he was just magnanimous and beautiful and all the things he said, but it reminded me of the man who saved my wife's life. By the way, my wife is with the man who saved her life as we speak right now, eating Black Forest cake in Cologne right now, and they're going to the Patriot. I can tell the secret now. I had to keep quiet about it for 6 months.
Black Forest cake at 10 o'clock in the morning?
No, it's 4 in the afternoon there. They're working it. Here's what happened. The schnitzel wasn't open till 5 o'clock, and I would have told him that, but she sent me a text. She's like, schnitzel not open till 5 o'clock. I'm like, the internet told me that. I knew that the last time. So nonetheless, I'm with these doctors, and last night Dr. Regine says that whatever the rating is of the alphabet soup that says that you are the best and not that I shouldn't know this. They saved my wife's life twice, right? 155 nights in the hospital. We were there for the Hope Lodge, so I want to give them a shout out too. God, what a great organization. It's a block from here, literally, the Hope Lodge, on this side of the city. It's the place that if my wife had cancer and I lived in Topeka, Kansas, and I had to fly here to keep her alive, and I'm going to tell you why that's important, because everybody does that from all over the world, right, in that tower. their family, they don't have the means. It's $200 a night for a hotel. And that's 155 nights that my wife was here. How many nights would I have wanted to not be there with her? 0. I spent one night on the couch there with the night I thought she was going to die. That was 154. But every other night, I did come home. So I was 1.6 miles. But he said you weren't 1.6 miles away from one hospital. You were 1.6 miles away from 2 of the top 30. The only 30 would take Mayo Clinic, the ones you've heard of, right? Baylor, the 30 that are the 30 in the world where if you got cancer in Buenos Aires,
you want to come to Baltimore.
You're going to come to Baltimore.
That's right.
You're going to pick Baltimore out of the 30, right, to save your life. There's 2 a mile and a half apart. And when I think about COVID, and I said this out loud, that was one of the reasons Brandon had to shut the city down because, if we get sick, you're going to lose hospitals. And when we saw what happened in New York and in Seattle with overcrowding, that was why it was so important that our population stay healthy because we have these really important arteries of care for people. So when you talk about surgeons and doctors, I mean, that's something that you're in pitching. How can they? I can't overlook Baltimore and Hopkins, right?
No, and I would even say that we even have that medical story now too, because during the pandemic we served as the longest active field hospital in the country.
Hey man, I roll my sleeve up. When I think of your building in recent times, other than the Nest, and I think I was a little macabre when I met you. I'm like, convention center. I went in there. I got a shot. It was like wartime. Everything was like sort of dark and somber. There was no music playing. It was just like line, move, mask, who are you, iPad, Purell. I mean, dude, I was at Ehrlich's inaugural 20 years ago in that building, but I've been in that building for grand events, Ed Block events, celebrities.
So how crazy it is.
Peyton Manning and I took a picture in that building.
Everything from Oriole Fan Fest to we're about to have
a million of those.
Toman Expo, coin shows, shock trauma galas. Now we've been a field hospital and a PPE storage site and a testing center. This building is an asset for the city because it can be anything it needs to be. And that's one of the stories that I think is really important. And
the pregame party for Oriole games is a really cool idea you had.
So when
like sort of a no-brainer.
We were standing on that terrace, and I was standing by the bar, and a guy walks up, and he orders a drink, and I hear him. He and I weren't talking. And he goes, "Well, about damn time." And I say, "Hey, sir, what did you mean by that?" And he goes, "I've been walking past this building for the last 25 years, and always thought this was such a great idea."
It's outside. It's beautiful for baseball, right?
And people then know that the convention center is a place for them too, right? And so there's a lot of different ways that we're working on.
Well, I'm looking forward to working with you on that next year.
We're going to go big. I've got some great ideas with enough lead time to do a really a great kickoff.
Well, we know when the games are being played, which is a big upgrade over playoff games.
That was tough.
and the weather's definitely more conducive to that. Matt Campbell is here. He's going to stay, do overtime. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I got these Raven scratch-offs. They're a limited time. I'm doing a lot of crab cake tours, man. I'm going everywhere. I'm going everywhere in the city. We're going to be up at Gertrude's. I want to give a plug because Dan Roderick's was here 9 months ago. I begged him to do his show again.
I missed that podcast a lot.
Okay, December 8th, you're invited. Damie's already coming, so you get to hang out with her people. There's a rumor her crab cakes are going to be served. So we're going to be doing the show up at Gertrude's on the 30th to promote that and everything that's going on with the BMA. So I'm excited about that. Very appreciative for everything the Maryland Lottery does for us. Our friends at Window Nation, 'tis the season, 866-90Nation, and Jiffy Lube Multicare as we signed up sponsors. We're taking a crab cake tour to Curio Wellness as well. I toured the cannabis facility in Timonium for 3 hours. I saw every single part of the operation. And I just wish Billick would have gone with me because he loves that stuff. Billick loves operations, like backstage at Amazon. That's so Brian, how this stuff works. And I was just blown away. So I'm going to be talking to Wendy about that this week. Let's see what else we have this week. Maryland Stadium Authority, Tom Kelso, and I'm yelling and screaming, and Wes Moore at some point is going to come on the show. He says by the end of the year. Brandon Scott, your boss, the mayor's, we're working on a date. Coco's his side of town, working on it. I'm not there yet, but I don't have the date. John Waters. I mentioned that, though, didn't I?
You did.
John Waters was on the program this week. It was at the top of my bucket list.
Why wouldn't it be?
32 years on the radio. And here's the thing about it, and this is a part of Baltimore Positive that I'm trying to grow, especially with the Ravens and the Orioles and all the crap that's going on, trying to grow into something different, whether it's just emceeing a cancer thing, which is fun, or sitting and doing this crazy thing with people we love with crab cakes and shipping. And but the John Waters thing, apparently my staff tried to get him on at various points, my producers. He's never said no to me. I've never met him. I've never been in a room with John Waters. Well, I'm lying. I went to the Lyric. Damie says he'll come here for a crab cake. Good. He talked about soft shell crabs in this segment because we did talk crabs. But I've never talked to him. I've never known him. I've never been in a room. I paid to see him at the Lyric 5 years ago, do the Christmas thing, laughed my ass off, and thought, be great to have him on. Whatever. I was trying to get him for a crab cake and sit down, and he's a little more like on the road and whatever, and they're like, Zoom. I'm like, Zoom's good. He put this Earl Flynn background. He called it the David Gray background or whatever. And we did 15 minutes, and the first thing I said is, like, this is bucket list. I can't believe you're coming on. I got all fanboyish, you know. And he's like, well, I never turned you down. And I'm like, this is a key thing in life that if I ask, they might say yes.
That's right.
You know, they might say yes. Right. So, of course, Ray, you know, is bitching from down in Pasadena. We tried getting him on. Yeah. And I'm like, but he never turned me. I've never asked him. And Dave Grohl's next.
Oh.
Well,
let me be a fly on the wall for that one.
All right, we'll take a break. We're at Faidley. I'll tell you why, Dave Grohl, because it has nothing to do with the Foo Fighters or Nirvana. It really has nothing to do with that. It's something way more personal than that. We're at Faidley's. Damie's here. Bill Cole's coming. Deviled eggs are here. Shrimp salads. I know where everything is. I could raid this joint. I did see the fish come in this morning, and the dude was really cool to me and stuff. I'm like, what's the best fish? He's like, ask him. He knows everything. And I'm like, no, you the guy that brings it. I just want to make sure that if you have flounder, that I get that I don't get rockfish if you brought, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I want to make sure I got his fish. He's like, it's all my fish. I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to leave here with some fish. So my wife's out of town. It's a little bit like the Prince song, Sinead O'Connor. I can eat whatever I want. You know, so I'm going to eat whatever I want today. So a little rockfish, maybe a little lemon,
the
caper.
world is your oyster or crab cake or whatever the
little wine sauce on that.
Is.
I'm at Faidley's. I can do whatever I want. Right. I can even have French fries if I want them. I am Nestor. We are WNST. We're doing the crab cake tour. Mac's going to stick around, talk convention center. Dave Grohl in the next segment. What else we got to do?
Sure. A downtown partnership.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
All right. We got things to talk about. Back for more on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour at Faidley's. People are coming in, so I got to go give some Maryland scratch-offs away. Stay with us.